Welcome to the Fishbowl Sports Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me today is Jalen. We're going to be doing our Louisiana Ragin Cajuns Baseball preview and softball preview for this week coming up here with two different weekend series for both baseball and softball this week here. Louisiana Ragin Cajuns Baseball team is ranked in all of the five major polls that we will, talk about in this upcoming episode here. So without further ado, let me introduce everybody to my co-host here, Jalen. How you doing today, Jalen?
Hey, I'm doing well, Chief. Another great day to be a Ragin' Cajun. Hey, the softball and baseball teams are all ranked. Yeah, that's what, a first in how many years?
Yeah, the baseball team, this is their first time, I think, since 2017 here. Softball, every year they're in the rankings. So for baseball to join them, after all those years they were been out, which has been, let's see, I'm not very good at math, so to forgive me here. 7 years it's been since they made the top 25 rankings here, which is always good, to be in the top 25, obviously, of course. But we'll talk more about like regional play and stuff and how this RPI stuff will be involved here as we keep going ahead here. Every week it's different here, but the Cajuns do have the longest winning streak currently in the country right now, and that is something to be very excited about. I mean, they got Prairie View A&M coming up tomorrow, and then you have, or today, depending on what time you're watching this podcast, we're filming it here on Monday. So then you got Louisiana Tech, and then you got the 3 games for this series here coming up here. So lots to look forward to if you're a Cajuns fan for sure. So you got Cajuns coming off another sweep here this week with ULM. They had beat Texas State, Old Dominion, Arkansas State here. And, it all started, that March 15th game was their last loss. So it's been almost a month since the Cajuns lost a baseball game, which is very impressive. Last week I was talking about, are they getting too hot too early? And, it's doing very well. The most runs the Cajuns have given up during that stretch is a 7-run game to Southern, which is a midweek game, which I can't worry about the weekend series that I do midweek games, even though they are important here in this case. But the problem I see with the Cajuns here, now, it's great to have a long winning streak, but the problem whenever you're looking at this here is the team they got coming up here not going to really help their RPI too much. Prairie View A&M right now, currently on WarrenNolan.com is what we're using, is at a 276 right now, live RPI update. Louisiana Tech 91. Marshall is 182 for 3 games in a series. So there's supposed to be severe storms tomorrow. If it doesn't happen, don't blame me. Blame the weather people. They're supposed to know this stuff. So like 276 is not going to help you host the regional. And the Cajuns currently live RPI is down by 1 since Sunday. It's 51 on Warren Nolan. I know NCAA has a different, like, their little official one, but I like using the live one so you can kind of see how the changes are and stuff. And they all come together at some point anyway. So I like looking at the quadrant records of RPI. Cajuns are 5-1 in quadrant 2, and they're 0-1 in quadrant 1. So they're only like quadrant 1 loss right now is Vanderbilt. That changes. Like, remember, LSU at the beginning of the year was ranked. They're not even ranked anymore. So LSU is like, and the Cajuns need LSU to win games in Houston as well. Every team that they, in that non-conference slate that the Cajuns played against, you should be rooting for them. Like Tulane, you want Tulane to win games. You want Northwestern State to win games. That helps your RPI. The more they win, the better it is for you if you beat them, because it actually boosts you up higher. Now, the Cajuns here, I want to be optimistic about them hosting, which would mean they would have host a regional, would mean get to a 16 seed. You're one of the top 16 teams in the country. Now, everything isn't based on RPI. They got different metrics they use at the committee's, jurisdiction, what they feel like they will be hosting or not. So RPI right now, live ranking right now is 51. Then you got a non-conference RPI of the Cajuns is 96. Their strength of schedule as of right now, as the recording of this podcast here, is at 114. Their non-conference strength of schedule 153. So their next 4 games is not going to help any of those numbers at all. Even like the best thing I think that could happen for the Cajuns this week would be if the Prairie View A&M game got canceled because it's such a high RPI. It's at 253, and they're not really that good of a team this year, Prairie View A&M. So, I mean, it would be better for them if that got canceled, got rained out or whatever. It would help the Cajuns RPI out because they're so high in the number of it's just not a good thing at all. So like Rice, they played earlier this year. That Rice series hurt the Cajuns a lot. They lost that series. They lost 2 of the 3 games earlier in the year. RPI right now for Rice is 231. So Rice needs to start winning games or they're going to be in bad. That's not going to help the Cajuns at all here. Rice State, which was a regional team last year, they're 18-13 so far, and their RPI is 171. So that's not helpful at all. So hopefully, like as we go through this schedule some more, it helps them out as we go through the schedule here. So you can only hope for that right now. But they're the Cajuns' next big game they have to like RPI wise, that'd be huge for them. Is of course the Coastal Carolina series down there in Conway, South Carolina. That is a big series that the Cajuns ain't getting to this weekend. They're taking on Marshall this week, so that is something we're going to have to look at here and see how they manage to go through it. I think the Cajuns are going to win their next 5 games. I think they're going to sweep Marshall, and I think they'll win both these 2 midweek games because the Cajuns pitching has really done a fantastic job striking people out and limiting runners on base here and able to the fielding's had some great moments like we've seen this past week in the diving catch in center field, sliding catch more, not diving, like more like sliding catch in center field. Great play. So this Cajun team can really get it done. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. And, D1 baseball has them. We have like a bunch of rankings for the Cajuns here. So the Cajuns themselves, if you look at all their rankings here, they have a 19 from D1 baseball. I'm going to pull up all these ranks here so I don't get them all. D1 baseball had them at 19, like I mentioned earlier. And then you got that's 17 for Softball America. Let's see. 19 for D1 baseball, 21 for Perfect Game, 24 for Baseball America. So that's 3 right there. So they're in all these rankings here. So they're riding a nation best 15-game win streak here. You got Prairie View A&M, Louisiana Tech on Wednesday. Then you got So I think the next 5 games, Cajuns win all those games. I don't see them dropping a game here until you get to Coastal. Coastal is the one that's going to really put that winning streak in jeopardy here. Now, for sure, I would believe here. Southeastern, they're at a 152 RPI. Like I said, they're not doing any favors helping the Cajuns with this RPI situation here. But after they get through these games here, if they could stay above a 60, I think that's really an important number to look at. I think 60 is huge because, listen, you don't want to like play yourself out of regionals, which I don't think the Cajuns will miss regionals. I think they'll be in very good shape here. Houston Christian is that midweek game at 208. Their next 2 series is against Southern Miss and Coastal after the Marshall series. So you got 3 games of a 22 RPI. So Cajuns are cheering for Coastal to win, and they're cheering for Southern Miss because you want these teams to be really high RPI teams when you come play them. And then you got Troy after that. Then you got Georgia Southern at a 49 RPI. Even though Georgia Southern's almost a 500 ball club, they're 18-14 right now. But as you get down to this almost midweek part of May here, we start looking forward here. These things are going to change still. This is still very fluid here. We still got a lot of baseball games left to play. So this RPI movement is going to be very different when we get down into May. So right now it is early. It is a little early, but you got to start paying more and more attention to it every week here. That's why we keep repeating this RPI to y'all so y'all can stay informed of what is going on here. So the ELO quadrant rankings for records for all the quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3. Cajuns are 1-2 in quadrant 1. The quadrant 2 record is 3-0. Quadrant 3, 8-2. Quadrant 4 is 12-4. Cajuns are 11-1 in conference play, and they're leading in the Sun Belt Conference right now. So let's look at predictor results. Where does Warren Nolan have the Cajuns finishing in their predictor? This thing's going to change. This is just based. I think they really rely too much on RPI. Not like hot streaks really don't really help this thing out too much here, I believe. So it's got them 38-18. It's got the Cajuns finishing that. RPI is 46. Strength of schedule 93. That wouldn't be enough to host a regional, but I bet you they got Coastal sweeping them. Let's see what this predictor says here. It's got them sweeping Marshall. Southeastern got them winning both. Okay, so it gave the Cajuns a win against Coastal the Saturday game. It's got them losing the first two games. It's got them winning the 2 and 3 against Southern Miss. It's got them winning the series against Georgia Southern, 2 and 3 there. So, like, if the Cajuns would sweep Coastal, that'd be huge. So, Jalen, what is something that you think the Cajuns will do, or like, how do you like get ready for a big like run, like such high RPI? You think it would help them if Prairie View A&M game got canceled, or like, how do you get to be a sub 20 RPI team, Jalen?
Now, what I'm thinking about, Chief, and I was listening to like what you're saying with the Prairie View A&M game, and yes, if it did, because it did, they have been talking about lately where there could be some weather conditions, but you never know. So if the game is played, I think ultimately the Cajuns would win, and would it hurt the RPI? Yes, but if it was canceled, would that not help their RPI? If the game went on and they beat Prairie View A&M, it would not help their RPI. But if the game got canceled, yes, it would help their RPI because they wouldn't be going against such a weaker team. But at the same time, it's like I think with them being on this 15 game winning streak at this point of the season, I feel like that the best they can do is go out there and win all three games against Coastal out there in Conway, South Carolina. I think they'll ultimately beat Prairie View, beat Louisiana Tech. Like you said, sweep. I think they'll sweep Marshall, take two, one at Russo and one at Hammond against Southeastern. And then you got the big matchup. I think that's the series of the year right there. Go to Coastal Carolina. They can win all three of those. Would that get them somewhat closer to maybe hosting a regional? Maybe. And maybe the committee will look at this win streak and be like, oh, okay, well, they're dominating the Sun Belt. They only lost one game so far if we're giving them all the wins that we talked about so far. And the Cajuns have a case to make. But as of right now, I mean, the way the schedule's been, the teams that they could have, played and won against teams like when they lost that first one against Tulane, even though they won 2 of 3, then they lost against Houston, lost against LSU, lost against Vanderbilt. That little 3-game losing streak right there kind of hurt them from the beginning of the season in March till now. But they still have a chance to, make some noise. And going into it, I mean, I would rather have a winning streak than to be losing, a few games in a row, because it shows you how well the team is playing. So we just have to see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
So the Cajuns have several good hitters on their team, obviously. So just keeping track of the teams that have been hitting, like how many players have been hitting over, 300 right now. So, and 300 is very good for baseball. To say like 250 are kind of hitting about average, basically. You're not going to get on base every single time you get on there. Like 400 and 500 is really, really good. Like you're hitting way above average. So, the Cajuns have 6 guys currently that are hitting over 300. That's Caldebar, Jose Torres, Duncan Pastor, Josh Alexander. And they got 2 that's right under that 300 that didn't include there. They're at 299. That's Lee Amadei and John Taylor. That's included. And Trey LaFleur's in 400. Mason Sambo hitting 316. So they have several guys that are getting up there and they're getting on base and they're doing what they got to do. On base percentage is a huge deal. Just getting on base is huge. So, because more people get on base, more opportunities for you to score runs. And that's what the Cajuns have done very well so far this year. So the Cajuns are, compared to their opponents, the Cajuns' opponents are only hitting 211 so far. Cajuns are hitting 296 as a team, which is very well. Looking at runs, Cajuns have scored 225 runs for the year. Opponents have only scored 132. So they're doing very well in that regard there as well. But, baseball isn't all about, batting. Let's look at some, they got fielding and ERA. So the Cajuns of the team are pitching at 357 ERA. Opponents are at 638. So they're doing very well, obviously. So yeah, Carson Fluno at 281, David Christie at 296. So they have, let's see how many pitchers they have under a three. Let's do three, because I think three is a good number for you to kind of determine how you are. So only two appearances is like zero. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They have 7 pitchers under a three run ERA. So, I mean, hey, they've done very well so far this year. And I mean, look, you can have bad games and it'll just be that kind of way here. But as a team fielding wise, the Cajuns are at 967. Their opponents are at 971 fielding percentage. Now, that's the one kink in the armor for the Cajuns is fielding. If you're looking at them from averages, but they're not so far off of their opponents to where it's like detrimental to their game here because they have good enough. Like I said, the pitching earlier in the podcast, the pitching's been phenomenal for the Cajuns so far this year. So they know how to close out games. They get up there. Their bats are hot right now. So if you can keep the bats hot, you're going to have very good success, more than likely, as you enter the season. So, yeah, I'm excited where the Cajuns are going in baseball. So we're going to go shift gears here and talk about softball a little bit here. So, softball update. They got a big series coming up this week against Texas State in a 3-game series on the road there. Then they're going to go on the road to take on LSU. Now, you want to talk about teams that are looking more and more likely to host a regional. The Cajuns are definitely in that category after a sweep of a 62 RPI. James Madison there really helped them out a good bit there. So, and a sweep with 35 South Alabama was a big one too. So they've been playing very high RPI teams. And their RPI is 17 right now. Strength of schedule is 6. Non-conference strength of schedule is 2. With LSU kind of, like we talked about LSU, because I think LSU is important here in terms of the NCAA. Kind of giving LSU a good bit of credit here in regards to all that, because like we said last week with the Cajuns and LSU, the committee's probably not going to put, if the Cajuns were ranked in the top 15 or top 13, I would put regionals in both Lafayette and Baton Rouge if I was in that committee, because I think both these teams have earned their right to have host. And, you've knocked off an undefeated Oklahoma team, snapped that winning streak. That's huge on a resume when you look at it here. Now, if the Cajuns were to go in there to San Marcos and sweep Texas State, which I got a feeling they might actually do it this weekend. I'm gonna go with the Cajuns winning 2 or 3 against Texas State. I think they will beat Texas State this weekend here. Cajuns have been there. They know how to win these kind of games here. So they've played a really tough schedule this year, and I'm really looking forward to it. So the Cajuns only, I mean, they're the champs, right? So it's really hard for them to, like Texas State, their strength of schedule is 34. Their non-conference strength of schedule is 17. The Cajuns have played better opponents than they have. So their resume is definitely tougher. So we'll see what happens with all these here. So one of the losses Texas State has is James Madison, and they won 2 or 3 against them. They swept App State. They won 2 or 3 against South Alabama. They won 2 or 3 against Troy. So I'm not really too concerned about that too much. I think the Cajuns have played a better, resume built, like a schedule. They have a tougher schedule, and they've been through it more than Texas State has. So I'm feeling pretty confident picking 2 or 3 for Texas State. What you think, Jalen?
Oh yeah, I'm very confident. Also picking 2 or 3, and like you said, I also they could sweep Texas State. They could go to the Bobcat Stadium and be like, hey, like Texas State, they're right up there with us in the Sun Belt as far as the 2 best teams. If the Cajuns could sweep all 3 of those games against Texas State going into their midweek matchup against LSU in Baton Rouge, I mean, it's all kinds of momentum that not only adds to their win streak, but tremendously helps their RPI in their route to hosting their regional.
Yeah, so predicted results are just that here. I do think it's gonna side with Texas State though for some reason. Because I think we ran it last week and had Texas State winning it. Let me see what it does this week. Yeah, it's got Texas State sweeping the Cajuns. Now, this is what I mean, but I think it's a little too much RPI based on, because it relies it's just like, all right, they're 16, you're 17, here's a sweep. Don't know what the metrics it does. I'm not a computer whiz. I don't know. You plug in this stuff into a formula and it just will spew out whatever data it is. So computers say they're going to lose to LSU. got them beating Nichols, got them sweeping Southern Miss. It's got them going at home and beating LSU in that return game. But if they can win both against LSU, that would really help them out a lot with them having a number three RPI. So I think Cajuns right now they're undefeated in the Sun Belt play. So I mean, I could definitely see a sweep. I think they're going to get 2 or 3 for a minimum here. They've been playing really good ball so far here. So if you look at stats are one of the things that'll tell your story of your season so far. And you know, they have before they even get there, let's see here. So let's look at how they've done so far this year. So looking at batting averages for the Cajuns here. Like I said, 300, you're hitting really good, regardless of Mike Davis hitting 420. That is absurd. That is a huge, big number that you can, that is outstanding. 420 is great for her. Brooke Elstad, 364. Maddie Hayden, 333. Sam Rowe, 330. So that's 4 right there off the bat that you're hitting over 300. Lainey Crudor, 354. That's 5. You got 5 people hitting over 300 in your regular lineup. Now, Deja Williams is hitting 500, but she's only started 4 games. She's participated in 33 games played. So, look, you got a lot of these people playing really well. And as a team, they're hitting 312 so far. So I mean, look, it's been really good. They've got some people out with injury that were really big for them last year. So hopefully they can get back in the lineup at some point here. But yeah, like as the ERA looking here, you got like Sam Landry, Chloe Rosado, Sam Ryan. They're all contributing here. So if you look at it here, let's see what their ERA is altogether. ERA altogether at 288, opponents are at 586. So if they could just keep that whole team ERA below 3, they're gonna look pretty good here as we get deeper into the season and that kind of thing there. So I think they're gonna get 2 or 3 against Texas State. I feel like that will be a really good run for them there. And then you got LSU right there in that midweek game. Getting a big win in Tiger Park would be huge for them. So I think that'll be something to look forward to and just see what's going to happen there. So, Jalen, do you think right now, if the softball team continues their winning ways, do you think they host a regional?
Oh, I think 100% they absolutely will host a regional. Now, I mean, they're undefeated so far in the Sun Belt. They did. Jared Glasgow mentioned this earlier through the season. They kind of went 9-12 against a lot of those ranked teams, but at the same time, they kind of helped those girls get to where they are now, and they're able to build once they got that win against Oklahoma. And now going into this matchup against Texas State, all the momentum's on the Cajun side. I mean, they say like we'll go to San Marcos, we'll go and beat Texas State, and they go out there and win all 3 of those games. Even if they win 2 of 3, I still think that's just a huge win for them in their route to hosting the regional. And then, like you said, they play the Tigers twice. I mean, if they still won maybe both of those games against one of the top teams in the nation, I mean, at that point, you cannot not give the Cajuns that regional host. I mean, you just can't.
Okay, so I'm going to quiz you a little bit here. So let's say if the Cajuns, let's say they split this, which is probably what I'll go with here. They'll probably end up splitting one of these games here. So 1 of 2, it's a top 10 opponent, So Texas State, let's say they take 2, like worst case scenario would be if Texas State would sweep them. But let's say going conservative, they win 2 or 3 against Texas State, they go play LSU and they beat them 1 of the 2 times. And then let's say they win the rest of their games here. So that would be them beating Troy, UOM, McNeese. McNeese is 36 RPI, so that would be a really big win for them too, even though it's a midweek game. Is that enough for them to host a regional, you think? Because they would have their quadrant 1 record would probably be, if you get them to win against McNeese, that's 10-13. So you got that's 12-13, and then you got that's the 2 wins Texas State, and you got 1 win over LSU and 1 loss, so that'd be Let's see. You're around like a 13-16 record. I could be wrong. I just did all that math in my head, but you think that's enough for them to host a regional? And where you think their RPI would be at? Right now it's live. Warren Nolan's got them at 17.
I don't know. They're still now. I don't know if their RPI would be much higher, but I still think they should still be able to host that regional. I mean, because we're not saying that they're going to lose all those games, and you got to look at the built up from the season from the beginning until now. And I mean, I still think they can lose both those games to LSU and still host a regional.
So you have like Mississippi State 16, Baylor's 21. So if these teams win games like Stanford and Texas, and they all played Texas as the number one RPI in the country. So if they win games, Oklahoma's number two. They have a win against the number two ranked RPI team there. So if they could, man, like I just think if they could have won that Texas game, that would have been huge for the Cajuns because they would probably be they would definitely be able past 15. I think they'll be at 13 or 12. They would have got that win, one of those wins against Texas. Even if a win against Stanford, because Stanford's RPI is 4 right now. So looking at all that there, they've got some good wins on the year. And they could definitely get up there and get into that top 15 for sure. I've said this for many years. Ragin Cajuns softball is the most likely sport for the Cajuns to win a national championship, and I really believe that very much so. So I think that's what you got to look at here. So um, as we continue through this here and just kind of look and see where these numbers are going to come up at here, the Cajuns are playing great ball right now. If they can continue their winning ways, they should be hosting a regional. Now, whether the committee is going to give them that or not, they could base it on something that's completely absurd or something. I know right now, as we're looking at the data and stuff, they have a top 10 strength of schedule and a sub 20 RPI ranking, and that's really tough to say that you don't have it, right? You're not good enough to get there. Right now, they're ranked number 17. So I think if the Cajuns can get in the top 25 a little bit deeper, if they can get up to a 13 or 12 ranked team in the country, it'd be very hard to turn them away from being a regional host for sure. So we'll see what happens here as we go through it here. Now, one thing that could help the Cajuns is who they play in the Sun Belt Conference tournament, which hopefully they run into Texas State, which would be a very good one for them. Let me see who would be good opponents to run into that conference tournament would be. South Alabama right now at 35. So that's looking at it right here. I'm trying to see who got the highest. Like, let's look at the prediction for the Sun Belt. It'll probably like conference RPI is 6 of the conferences for softball. So the RPI predictor's got the Cajuns finishing at 14. So you want to run into South Alabama and you want to run into Texas State in the conference tournament. That's your two biggest RPI teams right there. Everybody else is like Coastal's 81, Troy's at 61, James Madison 62, ULM 84, Marshall 113, Southern Miss 148. Then it's like over 100 at pass. You get past Marshall and go further down that way, it's over 100. So they're not going to help your case too much, but that's just the way it is, and that's just how the shape of the conference is. So we'll see what happens when we get down to that point there. But I mean, look, I think we've had a good chat here about the Cajuns, Ragin Cajun baseball team and softball team for this upcoming week here. We're trying to keep everybody in tune with what's going on here for the Ragin Cajuns here for sure here. Thank you for tuning into this Louisiana Ragin Cajun baseball and softball podcast here on the Fishbowl Radio. We hope you have a great and wonderful week here. And we'll see you here next time here on the Fishbowl Radio. For anything you want to say, Jalen, before we get off the air here?
I'm gonna just say, go Cajuns, keep them win streaks going, and we all continue watching.
Oh yeah, I hope y'all like my new decor that I added. Since I wanted to fill in this space right here a good bit. Added a little foam finger and some a pennant up there to give it a little bit more flair and stuff here. Like I said before, we just call it like we see it, and that's just the way we do it here. So we do our research and we just base our opinions on facts, not feelings. So yeah, that's how we do it here on the Fishbowl Race. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hope you have a great and wonderful week. We'll see you here next time here on the Fishbowl Radio.